A matrimonial agent does not sell brides. He sells letters. He writes them himself, in a warm office over a chandler's shop, in whichever hand the season requires. And the woman whose name goes at the bottom is told what her own accomplishments are and instructed to be grateful. When the Duke of Wrayburn wanted a wife, 4 such letters went north to him in 11 months, and 4 young women went after them, and all 4 came back inside a fortnight, with their trunks and their reputations both slightly damaged. The 5th woman read the draft the agent set in front of her, put down the pen, and asked for a clean sheet. What she sent instead was 91 words long. He answered it in 4 days. The offices of Mr. Absalom Pettifer stood over a chandler's shop in a street in York that smelled of tallow all year, and they consisted of 2 rooms, a stove, and a great many ledgers containing the daughters of the northern counties, arranged by portion. Verity Wren was 29 and had been employed there for 6 years as a copying clerk at £40 a year, which was £11 more than a governess and about a third of what a man in the same chair would have had. She had come to it the ordinary way. Her father had been a land agent who died with a bad lease and a worse cough, and her mother had followed, and a woman of 23 with a good hand and no portion takes whatever is offered by whoever offers it. She wrote the letters. That was the whole of the business, and the part that never appeared in any advertisement. Mr. Pettifer took a fee from a family, established what the family wished the world to believe, and Verity produced it in a round, girlish, faintly breathless hand that she had developed herself and privately despised. She had written 4 for Wrayburn. Miss Calloway of Ripon, who had been given a passion for Italian verse. Miss Dench, who had been given a delicate constitution improved by northern air. Miss Sowerby and Miss Fane, who had been given, between them, 1 harp, 1 facility in watercolor, and a great deal of concern for the poor. All 4 had gone north to Ardwick in the East Riding. All 4 had come back. Mr. Pettifer was not discouraged. He was, by January, incandescent, because the last of them, Miss Fane, had come back inside 9 days, and her father was demanding his 40 guineas returned. "The man is deranged," Pettifer said, on the morning of the 11th of January, pacing between the stove and the window with his coat-tails swinging. "He is a duke. He has 11,000 a year, and a house the size of a barracks, and he will not have a pretty girl of good family in it above a week. Fane says he sat at dinner 3 nights and asked her not one question. He asked her one." Verity said, without looking up. "It is in her father's letter, on the 2nd page. He asked her how the harp came to be in the house, and she said she did not know, and he did not speak again." Pettifer stopped. "What of it?" "Nothing, sir. Only that it was a reasonable question, and she had no answer, because I gave her the harp, and she had never touched one. She ruled a line under a column. Miss Croft of Thirsk is next in the book. Shall I write?" "Write. Give her the poor. He is a landowner. They like the poor." Verity took a clean sheet and set the nib to it and stopped. She sat for some while with her hand not moving, and then she did a thing she had not done in 6 years, which was to think about the man at the other end of the post rather than the family paying the fee. 4 letters, 4 women. 4 separate performances of accomplishment sent into a house in the East Riding, and 4 women sent home again, and not one person in the office had ever once asked what he had actually written back. She looked. The replies were in the file, all 4, 3 lines each in a hard, square hand with the ink pressed heavy. Not one of them mentioned the accomplishments. Every one of them asked a plain question about the woman's situation, and every one had gone unanswered because Verity had not equipped any of them to answer it. She put the sheet aside. She took another, and at the bottom she wrote her own name, and she did not write it in the round, girlish hand. The letter was 91 words. It said that she was a clerk in a matrimonial office in York, that she had written the 4 letters he had received on behalf of Miss Calloway, Miss Dench, Miss Sowerby, and Miss Fane, that none of the accomplishments described in them existed, and that she was writing to say so because he had asked each of those women a fair question and had been sent a stranger's answer 4 times. It said she had no portion, no family, and no proposal to make. It said she was aware this would cost her the place, and that she found she minded less than she had expected. She posted it herself on the Tuesday and paid the 9 pence out of her own money because it was not the firm's letter. Ivo Marchmont, 6th Duke of Wrayburn, received it on the Friday. He was 37. He was heavy through the shoulders and stood with his weight off the right side, where a horse had come down on him in a bog at Malting, when he was 23, and he had lain under it for 4 hours before anyone came. He had inherited at 31 when his elder brother went through the ice on the mere, and he had spent the 6 years since discovering that a title is chiefly a list of things other people require of you. He needed a wife because his uncle's son needed him not to have one, and because the estate went out of the family otherwise, and he had been perfectly clear about this in writing, in 3 lines, 4 separate times. He read the 91 words twice. Then he went and got the 4 earlier letters out of the drawer and laid all 5 on the desk, side by side, and looked at the hands. The 4 were the same hand, pretending 4 times to be 4 different girls. The 5th was somebody standing still. He answered in 4 days, which for him was headlong. His letter was 6 lines. It said that he had suspected the 1st, been certain by the 3rd, and gone on answering anyway because he could not think what else to do. It said he had no use whatever for accomplishments, and a great deal of use for a person who could read an account. It said his steward had died in October, and his books had not been touched since, and that he would pay £120 a year and her coach fare, and that this was an offer of employment and nothing else, and that she should not come if she required it to be anything else. Verity read it standing in the passage outside the office with her bonnet still on. Then she went in and told Mr. Pettifer what she had done, in order, flatly, and did not soften any of it. He went the color of tallow and told her she was a viper, that she had ruined him, that she would not get a character from him or from any office in the North, and that a woman of 29 with no family, who takes herself off to a strange gentleman's house in the East Riding, knows exactly what she is doing, and so will everybody else. You are probably right, Verity said. You are certainly right about the character. She packed her desk into a basket. It took 4 minutes, because she owned 4 minutes of things. Ardwick lay 11 miles from the coast in flat, wet country, under an enormous sky, and the house came up out of it like something set down rather than built, a long block of gray stone with a slate roof going green at the north gable, and 40 windows, 9 of them lit. It took her 2 days by coach and a hired cart the last 5 miles in sleet. Mrs. Threlkeld received her in the flag passage with the keys at her waist. She was 59 and had 38 years in the house. You will be the clerk. I will. There has never been a woman in the steward's room. There has never been a steward in it since October, ma'am, so the room has had a quiet winter either way. Mrs. Threlkeld's mouth did something at one corner and stopped. She put Verity in a room over the laundry with a bedstead, a washstand, a window that let the wind in at 3 sides, and no fire, because the coal for the upper rooms was accounted for, and there was nothing accounted for her. There was no key in the door. Verity wedged it with her boot and slept in her cloak and was in the steward's room at 6. The books were 4 years deep, and the last 11 months were not books at all, but a drawer of loose bills. She began the way her father had taught her, which is slowly, in ink, and from underneath. She did not ask for a fire. She asked for a candle box, and when the housekeeper sent up 2 tallow ends a night, she went out to the chandler in the village and bought her own at 4pence, and used a plain tin candlestick with a chipped rim from the back kitchen, and set it on the left of the ledger because that is where the light wants to be for a right hand. In the 3rd week, the Duke came in at 8 in the evening to fetch a map, and found her still at it, and stopped in the doorway. You have been here since 6, since 5:30. The drawer is worse than the books. He looked at the tin candlestick, and at the 2 estate ends burnt down beside her own 4, and went out without saying anything. The next evening, there were 8 candles in the box, and a scuttle of coal by the grate, and no note, because a note would have required an answer. He took to coming at 8. He did not talk. He sat on a plain chair he carried in himself, with his bad leg out straight, and read correspondence. And the room was so quiet you could hear the nib. Once she looked up and found him asleep. By March, she had it. The estate bought its lime for the fields through a factor at Malting, at 11 shillings the load against a kiln price of 6 3pence, and its coal at £1.9, the cauldron against 19 shillings at the wharf, and it hired 11 carriage horses a quarter and owned 6. 4 years of it came to £440. The factor at malting was a Mr. Sowerby, and Verity had written a letter for a Miss Sowerby of malting in September, and she sat looking at that coincidence for a long time before she went any further. "Say it," Ivo said from the chair. "Your uncle's son is Mr. Craik, who countersigns the lime account. Miss Sowerby is the factor's daughter. She was the third woman sent to you, and she was sent by the man selling you your lime, and I wrote her letter and gave her a harp." Verity set the pen down. "I have been sitting here since Tuesday, trying to find a way to tell you that does not sound like a woman making herself important. It sounds like a woman with a column of figures." He got up and came and looked at the page over her shoulder, close enough that she could smell wet wool and lamp oil. £440. "What do you want done?" "Nothing yet. It is arithmetic, not proof. I want the kiln's own book, and I want it certified, and I want Craik to go on countersigning for another quarter without knowing anybody has looked." She turned the ledger a quarter turn towards him. "Your leg wants the chair on the other side of the grate. You have been sitting in the draft for 11 weeks out of politeness, and it is making you slow after 9. He laughed then. It came out of him rough and startled, as though something rusted had been turned over, and he moved the chair. "The flood came in the last week of March, off the Wolds, at night. The main drain that took the water off the low fields ran under the home farmyard, and had been silted for 4 years, because nobody's account had ever been asked to pay for it, and at 1:30 it backed and came up through the yard and into the byre, where there were 9 cattle and the year's seed corn stacked on pallets, 4 inches off the flags. Verity was in it within 2 minutes with a lantern. The water was 3 inches and climbing and black. "Leave the corn," she said. "Beasts first." They got the 9 cattle out up the ramp to the stackyard, and then the men came for the sacks, and she stopped them. "Not out. Up. Onto the loft floor, 4 at a time, and use the pulley. You will drown yourselves carrying them through the gate." She went for the drain herself with 2 lanterns and found the grating under a foot of standing water at the yard corner, and could not shift it. Ivo came through the gate at a run with a crowbar. "Ivo!" It was the first time. "The wall by the wash-house. There is a stone in the old sluice that has been loose since Michaelmas. Take it out and it goes into the orchard." He took it out. He took it out with the bar and his shoulder, and his bad leg went from under him twice on the wet flags, and the water went sideways with a noise like a door coming off its hinges, and the level in the byre stopped inside 4 minutes. They found each other in the kitchen at 3, with the fire built up, both soaked to the chest, and there were 14 people in that room watching. He took her hands and turned them over. The palms were torn across from the pulley rope. "It is nothing," she said. "It is hemp, and it is in the cuts." He took a clean cloth and knelt down on a wet flagged floor, which cost his hip a great deal, and cleaned the grit out of them 1 finger at a time, and did not say anything for a while, and neither did anybody else. Mr. Pettifer came in May. He came with a solicitor, and he came in his good coat, and he had been rehearsing on the road for 2 days. "Your Grace, I shall be direct. This woman was my clerk. She forged in my office, in her own hand, 4 letters over 4 young ladies' names, and she now sits in your steward's room with your accounts in front of her. There is a word for a woman who writes herself into a gentleman's house, and it is not clerk. I am prepared to be quiet about the forgeries for £400, and I would advise your Grace to take the offer, because the York papers will not be." Ivo came out of the chair with something dangerous in his face. Verity put 2 fingers on his sleeve. "Sit down," she said. "This will not take long." She opened the ledger. "Mr. Pettifer, before we come to the forgeries, this estate has bought lime through a factor at malting, at 11 shillings the load against a kiln price of 6 3/4, and coal at £1.9 against 19 shillings, for 4 years, and it comes to £441. The factor is Mr. Sowerby. The counter-signature on every load is Mr. Craik's, who is his Grace's cousin, and stands next in the entail." She laid the certified kiln book on the table and turned it so the room could read it. "Your 4th fee, in September, came from Sowerby, for his own daughter, and it was 40 guineas, and it is in your day book on the page I copied, because I copied every page in that office for 6 years. You did not come here about my hand, sir. You came because your name is in the same book as theirs, and you would rather be paid to leave than asked to explain. The solicitor examined the floor with great attention. In the doorway, Bishop the footman stood with a tray and did not move an inch. "You are a copying clerk at £40, Pettifer said. "I was," Verity said. "I was cheaper than looking, and it has cost this house £441. The door is behind you. Mind the sill. It swelled in the flood." Nothing was prosecuted, because Verity asked that nothing be. The £441 was repaid out of Crake's expectations at 70 a year, which he accepted, and that was the part that told against him most in the county. Sowerby lost the lime contract and the kiln took it direct. Pettifer's office closed in the autumn when 4 families withdrew, and he told a version in which he had been shamefully used. The county said the Duke of Wrayburn had lost his reason over a clerk, and said it for about 6 weeks, and then said instead that the woman at Ardwick could tell you what a load of lime ought to cost, and that a wise man did not send an account to that house twice. He asked her in June, in the steward's room, with the ledger open between them. He did not kneel, because the hip would not have it, and because kneeling would have made it about him. "I have a wet house, a leg that predicts weather, and 6 years of accounts I never once read," he said. "I have nothing to offer that is not already on this table in your handwriting. That is not a proposal, that is an audit. It is both. You may refuse either half." She found she would rather be asked for something practical than thanked, so she named 3. That the drain be dug out and relined before the next spring, since drains do not wait. That she keep the books under her own name at the front, and be paid for it, separately, as a steward is paid. And that no woman ever again come to that house on the strength of a letter she did not write herself. 4 years on the low fields drained, and the byre stayed dry, and there were 2 girls from the village in the steward's room, 3 mornings a week, learning to rule a column and date it, because a thing that lives in one pair of hands dies with the hands. Mrs. Threlkeld, who had 38 years in the house, took to bringing the coal up herself, and never once said why. On a wet evening in October, Verity came in late with the kiln book under her arm and found the Duke asleep in the chair on the dry side of the grate with their son across his knee, and the chipped tin candlestick burning on the left of the ledger where the light wants to be. A matrimonial agent does not sell brides. He sells letters. It turns out the only one worth the 9p was the one nobody was paid to write. If Verity putting down that pen and asking for a clean sheet got you the way it got me, you know what to do. Hit that like button, and send this one to somebody who has spent years writing in a hand that was not their own. Subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another of these long historical dramas, and tell me down in the comments, what was the moment you knew she had already won? Was it the 91 words, the candles in the box, or the loose stone in the sluice? I will see you in the next one.